Yeah, we're bringing you Friday night racing on a Thursday tonight because we thought we were bringing you Montpellier versus Leinster in the Heineken Champions Cup tomorrow night. That has obviously hit the skids due to a decision by the EPCR Safety Committee. Leinster had a team picked and were ready to travel. Montpellier had a team picked and were ready to play, but the EPCR have decided that that game will not now go ahead. To join us to look at what's happened here and what it means for the Heineken Champions Cup going forward over the next few rounds of fixtures, the Irish Times' Gerry Thornley. Gerry, you're very welcome back to the show. I don't think we were expecting to speak to you this quickly in the week, but events have conspired against us, and Montpellier-Leinster is not happening. It's been a 28 points to nil bonus point victory awarded to the Top Couture side. People scratching their heads, as I mentioned at the top of the show at this one, wondering why the blame, as it is, and the fault in all this seems to have been levelled at Leinster's door. Can you shed any light on it? I'm afraid we're not hearing Gerry there. We'll try and get back to him. But as I say, Leinster with a 28 points to nil bonus point defeat awarded against them. Montpellier picking up all 5 points from that particular match on account of the EPCR's decision. I believe we do have Gerry back on the line now. Gerry, we'll take two with this one. Can you shed some light on why Montpellier have been given all 5 points in this one?
Well, I can understand why Leinster are so angry about it, because they've had, whatever it is, 5 rounds of antigen testing, 4 rounds of PCR testing in the last 6 days. And all those who were picked in their matchday squad and travelling reserves and staff all passed those tests without any, with just negative results. So they were all, in theory, COVID-free and therefore capable of travelling over, and had been passed to do so by Public Health Ireland. However, on the other side of the fence, you have EPCR, who have a match risk assessment committee comprising of doctors from their own EPCR medical advisory board and an independent virologist. And they had been obviously keeping a close brief on this match all week long. Montpellier had 5 cases themselves, but none since Monday. And it transpires that Leinster have over 20, I'm told, and have had new ones every day this week, including today. And on the basis of all this information, the Match Risk Assessment Committee advised EPCR that it was not safe to proceed with this match. And EPCR then took the view that it was their decision to award Montpellier a 28-0 bonus point win, presumably on the basis that if you're going to employ a Match Risk Assessment Committee and then they provide some advice, there's not much point in ignoring it.
Did Leinster push for this result to be a draw? Because I think anybody coming to this with a clean slate and no real opinion of it would suggest that you can't really blame Leinster for this one. I guess the incident people would point to is Scarlets last week, who obviously coming back from South Africa had a massive slew of COVID-19 cases, made it known that they were unable to fulfil their fixture against Bristol, and therefore Bristol were awarded all 5 points from that match, and people would have looked at that and thought, yeah, okay, fair enough. Leinster have gotten the go-ahead from Public Health Ireland. They had named a 23 that they felt were secure and safe and clear of COVID to be able to play this game. And this EPCR committee have decided that not only are Leinster not able to play it, but deserve to have 5 points stripped away from them, put them on the back foot in their pool. That's, I think, being safe is one thing, and being safe is something that a lot of people can understand. It's apportioning blame, I think, is quite another thing.
Yeah, well, clearly this advisory group decided that the greater volume of positive tests, positive results to tests in the Leinster squad endangered this game more than Montpellier not having had a positive case since last Monday. Leinster did agitate very strongly to have the game go ahead, that they wanted to travel. They'd been cleared by Public Health Ireland. And if the game was to be called off, that given there were issues in the Montpellier camp, that yes, it should be a draw. They argued, I believe, very vehemently for this, and they are extremely annoyed and disappointed, as they'd said. The statement they'd said that they are disappointed barely wasted their anger. They're furious about this. And you're right, it seriously disadvantages them, because now, particularly with a shortened pool format of only 4 games instead of 6, they can only they've been asked at a maximum of 75 points of their original match points haul. So in other words, instead of playing for 20 points, they're only playing for 15 points. Even if they get 3 bonus point wins, it might prevent them from earning a top 2 ranking in their pool or a top 4 ranking, which in turn could, depending on how the knockout stages pan out, could conceivably cost them a home quarter-final and or a home semi-final.
Yeah.
So it seriously disadvantaged their chances of winning the Heineken Champions Cup this year.
And being realistic about it, for to look at the lay of the land of what's going on in the Premier League, what's going on in the Challenge Cup this week. I know Saracens had a game called off, and we're seeing a slew of Premier League fixtures being called off as well. Chances are this isn't going to be an isolated case. We're going to see more games called off, and when you have that narrow and that little amount of wiggle room in terms of games that you're actually playing in the pool stages, when you start calling this many off, and I would say there will be more. I think anybody with a pair of eyes can suggest that there will be more. It's going to seriously compromise the integrity of the competition to just have a bunch of people going through on the basis of, other teams not being able to fulfil fixtures.
Yes, of course it is. This is the vagaries of conducting a tournament in the depths of winter when there's a new, very transmissible variant about, and it's being held across 6 different countries. It's just so difficult for the tournament organizers. I mean, the only thing I would say is, if you think back to this point last year when rounds 3 and 4 were completely cancelled in its entirety, along with I think 5 matches after the first 2 rounds as well.
Yeah,
you would have said this tournament had a chance of being completed last season, and ultimately it was. And Toulouse earned their 5th Heineken Cup, their 5th star, and I think probably most people would have said that was a fair enough outcome. It was a minor miracle that they completed the tournament. The challenge is every bit as great this time. I think you're right. It will compromise the integrity of the tournament, and there's all sorts of difficulties ahead, not least indications from the French government that imposing new travel restrictions in and out of France. Now, that is with the UK. And as things stand, I believe that the Ligue Nationale de Rugby are still trying to ascertain from the French government whether the previous sporting exemptions for elite sport are going to apply. And they come into effect, these new regulations, on Saturday night. So all that places into doubt all the France-UK games. Teams involving the English teams against UK teams against French teams in France are suddenly in peril as well. So there's a huge COVID cloud hanging over this tournament now. And it's like everything in sport at the moment, it just seems to be getting bigger by the hour. The only redeeming feature as things stand is that Ireland does not come into this ambit with the new travelling restrictions in France. So therefore, touch wood, the other games involving the Irish provinces should go ahead this weekend at least.
Yeah.
Touch wood. You can tell.
There was supposed to be a meeting this evening as well, we were told, at around 6 p.m. I don't know what the upshot of it has been just yet. It might not be over. The French League, the Eleanor, the EPCR, who of course look after these European competitions, and the French clubs were all present. So there's 8 out of 12 games in the Champions Cup were potentially affected this week, as you imagine, all of them involving French sides. And one of those is Munster Cash. There doesn't seem to be any doubt about Munster Cash so far, at least, although this meeting tonight could well change things.
It could well change things, but as things stand, it doesn't seem to be imperiled. I mean, speaking to a few people about this in the last hour or two, this game seems like there's a good chance there's every chance it will go ahead. Because like I said, the travel restrictions apply to the UK and France, the French government to bring in. It doesn't, as things stand, affect Ireland. So that match should go ahead. There are, touch wood, appear to be no instances of COVID tests being conducted in the Castor squad or the Munster squad. That most, of course, have had their own problems, and many of those who were the 14 that were detained in South Africa, they're not even back in the HPC yet. They're not coming back till next Monday. It's very unclear how many of the original cohort of 34 that travelled back from South Africa have returned to training in the HPC this week. Johan van Graan is back at work, but he himself could not confirm whether any of his 3 senior coaching assistants were at work this week. So the implications of the ripple effects of their trip to South Africa are still being felt right up to this week. Although I still think that game, as things stand, will go ahead, and probably with reinforcements from those who were ruled out of the first game against Wasps and Coventry.
Is there anything that would force the EPCR to pump the brakes and just say, let's put a halt to this competition?
They have one huge difficulty compared to the top 14 and the Premiership and the United Rugby Championship. And that is there really is no windows for rearranging games. There is some modest scope in the other competitions for rearranging games, but the EPCR are just very set, rigid windows because that's what's been foisted upon them by the 3 feeder leagues. That's the way they want it. So if a game don't go ahead on a given weekend, it can't be played at the time. Now, you're right. What they did last season was they just cancelled all of rounds 3 and 4 drew a line in the sand after 2 rounds, including 28-0 bonus point wins from cancelled matches, and cobbled together a last 16 and went ahead with the tournament. One fears that something kind of that radical will probably have to apply again at some point in this competition.
Yeah, touch wood, it won't. But at the moment,
touch wood, it won't.
Yeah, touch wood. It's a very delicate situation, Gerry. That's the thing. Like we can't make any predictions on this, and you would imagine be incumbent upon the EPCR to start reaching out to the Premiership, to the United Rugby Championship, and to the LNR to say we need some wiggle room here. Because this competition is just going to crumble. Both competitions, you factor in the Challenge Cup. But yeah, I figure we could be having a similar conversation in about a week or two time. Gerry Thornley, thank you so much for taking time out this evening to speak to us.
Not at all, pleasure.